October 21st, 2023, a mysterious fire gutted Hoima High Court premises at dawn, incinerating vital records linked to several land cases in the oil-rich Albertine graben. By the time the embers dissipated, many files in the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution and Registry had been reduced to ashes. This incident bore the hallmarks of criminality and seems to follow the pattern of another fire that consumed vital files that were kept at the resident state attorney's office after thugs torched the premises. Badru Mugabe, who is the resident city commissioner Hoima, mulled over the implications.
Now there is an interest in investigation whether there is a relationship between the nature of incident or those ill-minded people who could have caused this fire. And we also need to understand whether it is a natural disaster, or if it was a malicious fire with intention to damage some files.
Jenniferbwam, a female environmental human rights defender, believes that it is the cartels behind massive land evictions in the Albertine who orchestrated the arson.
To me, I believe these are people, these should be defendants, mostly who have evicted people on their lands and they don't want these people to attain justice.
This is not the first incident. About 2 months or 3 months ago, we had the same incident happening at the DPP office in Hoima City. So we must, as leaders, the security team, be concerned and see we find lasting solutions to make sure this kind of incidents don't happen again.
It was coming to 6 when the guard wanted to hand over to the incoming guard for day shift. That's when he saw smoke. But of course, the guards, they had no keys. What they did, they called our fire brigade team who rushed to the scene. And because they couldn't open the door, they had to break the behind the window so that they could get access or they could save some of the files.
The latest fire has placed judicial officers in Hoima in the crosshairs as some of the court orders, which NTV has seen, show documents with suspicious signatures and an order purportedly authored by the Hoima High Court, which was not yet in existence. These questionable documents are related to a 2,545-acre piece of land that is the subject of land disputes in Kapapi and Kiganja sub-counties in Hoima district. On February 10, 2023, armed men raided these villages and evicted about 500 families, despite orders from the lands minister, Judith Nabakova, halting the eviction. They claimed that they were acting on the orders of a businessman, William Gafayo Ndahura. There appears to be a repeated pattern of violence during evictions across the Albertine graben. Some of the community leaders, barely a month before the eviction, were arrested and hauled into police cells on false charges. Women were gang raped. Violent beatings have been meted out to those who resisted evictions, property belonging to those evicted looted, and the complicity of security personnel, including police, has aided and abetted the evictions. This woman, who was raped and spoke anonymously, revealed,
on 10th Feb this year, at night, at around 1 in the night, I heard people banging on my door. When I tried to come out to see what's happening outside, I found people dressed in uniforms of police and army. When I came out, they arrested me. They started beating me up and my children scattered, running in fear of the beating. Some of those people who were putting on uniforms were civilians whom I know.
She says that she was taken to the side of her house and raped.
I went to police of Biso because we were fearing the police of Hoima are conniving with the land grabbers. When we reached Biso, they told me that I should go back to Chigorovia because that thing happened in Chigorovia side. After going to Chigorovia, the police of Chigorovia told me issue concerning the land matter of Kapapi is supposed to be handled in Kitova police post. So I didn't continue to Kitova in fear because all other people who could go to Kitova were being arrested. And I didn't have money because everything in my house was stolen that night. From that time, I'm just here struggling with life. Life is very difficult since I'm pregnant. I have young children. I'm homeless.
Another woman whose husband was arrested on 25th February 2023, nearly a fortnight after they were evicted from Kapapi, currently lives in hiding with her family inside a forest.
On Feb 10th, those people came back at night. They dismantled our houses and even caned us. In fear of the cane, because they were caning us, we left each and everything of ours, our animals, our poultry. When I reached Kapapi, there is someone who just helped me and lent me a house where I could start putting my children. I finished there 2 weeks. On the third week, they came at the door where I was residing at Kapapi with a kabangali, a police vehicle, and some other police officials. So when they left, I also moved away from there with my children and ran for refuge in the forest. It's where we were staying.
Peter Arinaitwe and Anthony Odur are the lawyers representing the evicted community.
One has to understand that powerful individuals who are interested in the dollar money are going out to the communities and pushing out those communities. Why? Because they're interested in the land. And they anticipate once the community members have actually been evicted, then they'll be able to actually negotiate with the companies and get money from these companies. But the people who are feeling the impact of these evictions are the community members who are found there and who are very illiterate, who are uneducated, who do not understand things to do with land registration or transfers.
Odur says senior army officers and police officers are involved in the eviction.
It becomes difficult for people who are really oppressed to even access justice because we've actually been struggling to have some of the people who were arrested during and after the eviction out of prison, because some of them were on remand, but it was very, very difficult to actually have them released. And you could actually tell even in court that you know, there's some force that is invisible that is actually controlling their affairs.
On 4th October 2023, Odur, who was in Hoima town, was trailed by an armed man with a pistol, who he later escaped from. The lawyers reported this incident to the Chief of Defense Forces and Inspector General Police, amongst other officers.
We involved Uganda Law Society. We also involved the judiciary, but to this date, no one has actually responded to our letter.
Arinaitwe says his law firm received a distress call in May 2023 from the victims of the eviction. He discovered that some of the victims had been in detention for 4 months and had been arrested a month before the eviction.
We found there were gross human rights violations. It was not only an eviction. It was an eviction that was planned in such a way and executed in such a way that it impacted or it inflicted maximum impact. And I think it was designed in such a way that these people should never think about even returning back on this land. So we were dealing now with gross human rights violations over the people who have been displaced and evicted from their land. Women were raped. Their houses had been burnt down. Children were beaten. Others almost got burnt in those houses. They were rescued. We have photos. And to make it worse was that the people responsible for some of those atrocities were in charge of the justice system.
Using a three-pronged approach, the law firm secured bail for those in jail on trumped-up charges, instituted a private prosecution against specific individuals under the Human Rights Enforcement Act, and instituted 2 civil matters so that the evicted could repossess their land. Amongst those privately prosecuted is Brigadier Peter Akankunda Nabasa, the Deputy 1st Division Commander, the DPC Hoima, Jackson Bogere, the Hoima Deputy RDC, Michael Chakashari, and a prominent businessman, William Gafayo Ndahura, who are all accused of violently evicting locals. Charles Bainomigisha, who is the lawyer for Brigadier Nabasa, told NTV that his client has not been involved in any human rights abuses nor land grabbing.
In the first case, our client has no interest in the land, which is claimed by different people. It has the registered owners. Our client has never stepped on that land and has no interest whatsoever in that land and has never bought any part of that land in the interest. That case is civil suit number 78 of 2023. That is Murenga area and 8 others.
Bainomigisha says his client only has a lease interest he legally acquired.
Our client in 2022 went to Hoima while in search of land where he can graze his cattle. He identified land which was vacant. That land belonged to the estate of late Tito Richard Kelly Viangere. The estate has an administrator called Asimwe Viangere. That Asimwe Viangere was approached and they entered into negotiations, and our client got a lease or rented approximately 700 acres in order to utilize it for grazing his cattle. So the allegations that he violated people's rights in 2023 in February, March, between February and March, those allegations our client are not within his knowledge and has never been privy to any of such allegations, and they have never been brought to him. It was only in the newspaper. He has never been called at police to report a police statement. There is no police report that has been issued by police to indicate that he is implicated in the land grabbing allegations they are talking about.
However, earlier on in March 2023, Kafaya told NTV,
"It is true that some people should return to the land, but we refused them because they don't own any piece of land." The Minister Nabakoba was asked to out her directive in writing, and the district security team has nowhere to start from. The minister has no powers to make people to go back to the land. It is the court.
The private prosecution has also ran into legal hurdles, as the office of the DPP authored a letter recently informing the lawyers that it was seeking to take over the private prosecution. The lawyers fear that this is intended to nip the private prosecution in the bud.
Raised strong objections and say it is not a blanket mandate. Under Article 120 of the Constitution, the powers of the DPP are qualified, particularly in respect to take over private prosecution. The Constitution qualifies and puts conditions. And that's what we drew the judicial officer to, that it is not just a blanket mandate, they must qualify it in light of the background which we tabled, of the victims' frustration of their access to justice, and with them being prosecuted by the very office, even for matters which were trumped up, which appear trumped up.
Arenaitwe says they will continue to challenge the interpretation of these provisions.
The state of the victims of the eviction is deplorable. They have been homeless since Feb. Ever since they were evicted, even the minister came in and ordered that they be reinstated back on the land, which was defied. And that shows you how powerful some forces behind this are. The victims are in that state where they need urgent rescue. And we felt that the mainstream court system and the suits we had filed for their return and compensation may take some time. So we sought interim remedies. And we did so by applying for mandatory injunctions. Mandatory injunction applications are intended to restore the status quo before the main suit can be had. And that's where we are right now.
Suspicions of a syndicate continue to seep across the hallowed temples of justice. This is after a consent judgment from Masindi High Court, which ruled that the community should not be evicted until the judgment in the main petition is disposed of, went missing on the files. Upon reviewing the file, we noted that both the application and the consent order resulting from it were missing from the file. Yet previously, when we checked the record, both documents were available. In light of the above, we were unable to certify our copies, yet this order constitutes one of the key pieces of evidence that we intend to rely on in our application number 103 of 2023 for a mandatory injunction. Reads a letter from Arenaito Peter and Company Advocates. Were these documents part of the vital evidence recently incinerated in the fire? The lawyers are also raising concerns in regard to a court order which was issued by the Chief Magistrate, George Imfitundinda, and strangely bears the signature of the Assistant Registrar Iganga, David Sayuni. On 16th October 2023, Arenaito Peter and Company's advocates wrote a letter to the Acting Assistant Registrar Iganga High Court, David Sayuni, which raised these anomalies. All the orders arising from miscellaneous application numbers 92 and 91 were issued on the same day, June 29, 2022. Whereas the file has the captioned orders, there are neither records of proceedings nor the applications from what the said orders arise. The record further indicates that miscellaneous application number 91 for a temporary injunction was withdrawn on July 6, 2022. We compared the signature on the certified order for the temporary injunction V-Day miscellaneous application number 91 of 2022 with that on miscellaneous application number 92 of 2022, and the two signatures appear suspicious. The letter also points out more suspicious content. How could the orders state High Court Hoima when, on the alleged date of the hearing, it had not yet been established as a High Court circuit? On October 2, 2022, the judiciary issued a circular operationalizing 6 new High Court circuits, which were Hoima, Iganga, Luero, Moroto, Tororo, and Rukunjiri. This presupposes that the orders purportedly issued by the Hoima High Court on June 29, 2022 were strangely issued before the court was operationalized. As a judicial officer with a duty to ensure impartiality, both in and out of court, and to enhance public confidence in the justice system, we kindly request you to clarify the authenticity of the orders as soon as practicable, reads the letter. On 18th October 2023, the Assistant Registrar Iganga, David Sayuni, who previously worked in Hoima, responded, saying, as for the extracted order of temporary injunction signed on 23rd February 2023 at Hoima High Court, purporting the same to have been issued by me on 29th June 2022, I believe this was done by the Acting Assistant Registrar at Hoima High Court in error. But the same can be clarified by the registrar who signed. He even has the opportunity to look at the file, unlike myself, who does not have the file here at Iganga High Court. Otherwise, I confirm that I signed the interim order issued on 29th June 2022, but not the temporary injunction order extracted on 23rd February 2023. On 19th October 2023, the lawyers wrote to the Hoima Chief Magistrate, George Imfitundinda, who also served as the acting registrar for the Hoima High Court, demanding that the forged record be expunged. The letter partly reads, when we sought clarification from His Worship, David Sayuni, he clarified that he is only aware of the interim order, which he issued upon consent of both parties on the 29th of June 2023. As to the order for the temporary injunction, he advised to seek clarification from the person who was in charge of Hoima High Court as the acting registrar. Since you were the one in charge of this station at the time, we hereby notify you that the above order is a forgery with criminal ramifications based on the following glaring observations. It read further, the Hoima High Court circuit cited as the court that issued this order was not yet created on the 29th of June 2022. The judicial officer, cited as the one who heard the application, has denied ever hearing the application and issuing that order. The lawyers in their letter demanded that the officers responsible for the issuance of the order be held to account and the missing record in the file be traced and restored. The actions herein above described do not only cast the justice system in bad light, but also erode people's confidence in the courts of law. The Chief Magistrate Infutundinda was not willing to respond on record to these allegations, and it remains inconclusive to infer that there was any wrongdoing on his part.